I've looked everywhere for my time of birth and I still can't find it. Is there any way I can get a reading? That's a question I hear quite a lot. My first response to it always is, how hard have you actually looked for your time of birth? The time of birth is an absolutely critical piece of any astrological reading. In fact, one cannot do astrology without a reasonably accurate time of birth. I would say within about 5 minutes would be my suggestion. Sometimes it gets even more critical than that. So time of birth is critical. And sometimes it isn't that the information doesn't exist or is unavailable, it's that the person hasn't looked in the right place. And so asking to your parents, if they're still alive, any family members who might have been around, that's a good start. If you're born in a hospital in the last 5 decades, there's an excellent chance the record exists at the state level. Department of Vital Statistics. Our website, forestastrology.com, has a listing of the addresses and contact information for every state and for many of the other countries around the world. So my first response to this is make an effort to see if that birth time does exist somewhere. But if you have truly exhausted all of those possibilities and you simply cannot locate your time of birth, there is one more possibility. It's called rectification. And this is it's a complex process, but it's pretty simple to describe it. We understand that the major of the events of a person's life, like getting a new job or moving across the country, are indicated astrologically. The timing of those things is always connected to transits and progressions. Some of those transits and progressions, actually a small subset of them, would be transits or progressions to the time-sensitive parts of the chart, the ascendant, the midheaven, just to put it very simply, because their position in the zodiac changes about 1 degree about every 4 minutes. That's true at the midheaven and approximately true everywhere else. And so if we find, for example, and this is rectification, that everything pops in a person's life whenever planets get to about 15 degrees of Cancer, let's say, and the person has no planet there, and 15 degrees of Cancer makes no strong aspects to any of the planets. But we know from the existential reality, the biographical reality, that that's a hot area of the zodiac for this person. How are we going to explain that? Maybe it's simple. Maybe that's the person's ascendant, for example. And so what we do is we get a list. I usually suggest of about 10 pivotal dates in a person's life. If we can get them down to days, that's great. Get them down to months, that's still helpful. Give me a list of the 10 turning points of your life. And then essentially, I adjust the chart. We have you're somewhere in that 24 hours, you're born. And I adjust that chart until the timing of those events would line up with a certain time of birth, and then we assume that to be accurate. This is the process of rectification. Astrologers make predictions based on the birth chart. Here we're predicting a birth chart based on the events that have already happened. There it is in a nutshell. It's a complex process. It takes quite a lot of time. In my own practice, I basically don't do it very often anymore because I'm so busy with clients and teaching and so on, but I can make referrals to people who are competent at this craft. You'll have to pay for it because there are a lot of hours of work and research involved with it, but it does work. On a couple of occasions, I have done rectifications some years ago, and then later the person, I found a family Bible with my birth time in it. And in both cases, the rectified time proved accurate within 6 or 7 minutes. And that was, I felt pretty good about that. So you're not in a hopeless situation if you don't have a birth time. If you're really motivated to have an astrological reading, you do have that one possibility.